I never thought my life would turn into something straight out of a twisted reality show, but here I am, about to tell you the craziest thing that ever happened to me. It all started when my dad remarried. At first, I wanted to be happy for him. He had been alone for a long time, and when he met Lisa, my stepmom, he seemed genuinely happy. But something about her always felt off. Maybe it was the way she looked at me when my dad wasn't around, or how she always had this fake sweet tone that made my skin crawl. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but I knew she wasn't as perfect as she pretended to be. Things got even weirder when she started taking a sudden interest in our family dog, Max. Max had been with us for years, loyal, playful, and always there when I needed a friend. But Lisa had never paid much attention to him before. Then, out of nowhere, she started obsessing over him. She would buy him expensive treats, spend hours brushing his fur, and even talk to him in this weird baby voice that made me uncomfortable. It wasn't the kind of love a normal person had for a pet. It felt unnatural. One evening, when my dad was out of town for work, Lisa called me into the living room. Her usual fake smile was plastered across her face, but her eyes had this strange intensity. She held up her phone and said, "I need you to help me with something." I glanced over at Max, who was lying on the floor, wagging his tail, completely unaware of the tension in the room. "What kind of help?" I asked, my stomach twisting into knots. Lisa let out a small laugh, like I had just asked the most ridiculous question in the world. "Just a little video project," she said. "Nothing crazy." I should have said no. Every instinct in my body was telling me to walk away, but the way she looked at me, like she already knew I wouldn't refuse, froze me in place. Before I could react, she handed me the phone and told me to start recording. That's when she did something I never expected. At first I thought it was a joke, some sort of prank she was pulling on me to test how far she could push me. But the way she kept going, completely serious, made my heart pound in my chest. My hands felt clammy as I gripped the phone, my mind racing with all the ways this could go wrong. I knew I had to make a choice. Do I go along with whatever this is and risk getting caught up in something terrible? Or do I find a way to stop it before it's too late? Before I could decide, Lisa turned to me with a grin and said, "Don't just stand there, keep filming." And that's when everything spiraled out of control. I stood there, gripping the phone so tight my fingers ached. My heart pounded in my chest as Lisa's eyes locked onto mine, waiting. The way she spoke, so calm, so sure that I wouldn't dare disobey her, sent a chill down my spine. Max, still lying on the floor, wagged his tail like everything was normal. But nothing about this felt normal. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. "Lisa, what is this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She tilted her head, her smile never fading. "It's just for fun," she said, her tone too light, too casual. "A little video project, no harm, no foul." But I didn't believe her, not for a second. I glanced down at Max, his big brown eyes looking up at me with trust. He had no idea that something was off. But I knew. I felt it in my gut. There was something wrong with this whole situation, something Lisa wasn't telling me. "Come on," she pressed, her patience thinning. "It's not that big of a deal." I wanted to refuse. I wanted to walk away, throw her phone across the room, and pretend this night never happened. But the way she stood there, watching me, waiting, made me feel trapped, like saying no wasn't even an option. I took a slow breath and forced myself to act normal. "Okay," I said finally. "What do you want me to do?" Her grin widened, and for a second, I felt like I had just made a terrible mistake. Lisa walked over to Max and crouched down beside him, running her fingers through his fur. "Just keep the camera steady," she instructed, "and don't stop recording." I lifted the phone, my hands slightly shaking, and hit record. As soon as the red light blinked on, Lisa's whole demeanor changed. She put on a performance, talking in a voice that was way too cheerful, like she was hosting a show. She smiled at the camera, introducing Max like he was the star of some ridiculous pet channel. But the way she spoke, the things she said, it didn't sit right with me. She wasn't just playing around, she had a plan. And the way she kept glancing at me, like she was testing me, made me realize something even worse. This wasn't about Max. This was about me. And I had no idea what I had just gotten myself into. Lisa kept talking to the camera, her voice dripping with fake excitement, but I wasn't really listening anymore. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what was really going on. She was too calculated, too focused on making everything look perfect on video. It was like she had been planning this moment for a long time. But why? What was the point of all this? Max, still clueless, just wagged his tail and licked her hand, happy to have the attention. But I could feel something shifting in the air, something I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't just about the video. It was about control. Lisa kept glancing at me, like she was waiting for a reaction. She wanted to see if I'd follow along, if I'd obey without question. It wasn't just about filming, it was about trust, or maybe something even more twisted. Then she did something strange. She stopped talking, her expression softening just a little, and looked straight into the camera. "Family is everything," she said, her voice suddenly lower, almost serious. "Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to, for the ones we love." My stomach twisted. That wasn't for the video. That was for me. I shifted uncomfortably, my grip tightening around the phone. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just some weird game. Lisa was testing me, pushing me to see how far I'd go. But for what? I wanted to confront her, to ask what this was really about. But before I could say anything, she turned to me with that same eerie smile. "Let's do another take," she said, "and this time, try to look a little happier." That's when I knew this was only the beginning. I forced a smile, but my face felt stiff, like it wasn't even mine. My pulse was hammering in my ears, drowning out Lisa's words as she reset the scene. She adjusted her hair, fixed her shirt, then shot me a look, one that told me she expected me to play along. I swallowed hard, my grip on the phone tightening. I could feel the weight of this moment pressing down on me. It wasn't just a simple video anymore. It was something more, something I wasn't prepared for. But Lisa was in complete control, and she knew it. Max let out a soft whine as if he could sense the tension. Lisa barely reacted. She just smiled at the camera and launched into the same rehearsed words. But this time, there was something different in her voice. It wasn't just forced enthusiasm. It was expectation. And then she said something that made my breath catch. "I think we should show them something special," she said, turning to me with that same eerie smile. "Something they'll never forget." My whole body tensed. I had no idea what she meant, but the way she looked at me sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just about the video anymore. This was about me, about proving something. I glanced at the door, calculating how fast I could get out of there, but Lisa must have seen it in my eyes because she tilted her head and laughed softly. "Don't be nervous," she said. "You trust me, don't you?" I couldn't answer, because at that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't sure I'd be able to leave if I tried. Lisa's words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I tried to steady my breathing, but every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong. I glanced at the door again, but before I could even think about moving, Lisa took a step closer, her eyes locked onto mine. "You're not scared, are you?" she asked, tilting her head like she was studying me. Her voice was light, playful even, but there was something underneath it, something dark. I forced myself to shake my head. "No, of course not," I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled, satisfied with my answer, then turned back to Max. He wagged his tail, completely unaware of the tension in the room. I envied him. Then, just as I thought I might be able to get through this, Lisa did something that made my stomach drop. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small black USB drive. She held it between her fingers, turning it over slowly before looking up at me. "I need you to do one more thing for me," she said, her voice so casual, like she was asking me to hand her the remote. But I knew better. Nothing about this was normal. I swallowed hard. What is it? She walked over to me, placed the USB in my hand, and leaned in just close enough that I could feel her breath on my skin. I need you to upload this. I stared at the tiny device in my palm, my fingers trembling slightly. Upload it where? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped back, folding her arms across her chest. Just plug it into your laptop, she said, and you'll see. A cold wave of panic washed over me. Whatever was on this drive, I knew it wasn't good. My heart pounded as I tried to think of a way out, but Lisa was watching me too closely, waiting for my reaction. What's on it? I asked, my voice barely steady. Lisa's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's better if you don't ask too many questions, she said. Just do what I say. I looked down at the USB again, my mind racing. I had two choices: plug it in and find out what Lisa was really up to, or refuse and risk making her angry. But before I could decide, Lisa took another step forward and whispered, "Trust me, you don't want to say no." My hands felt ice cold as I stared at the USB drive. Lisa's words echoed in my head, each one laced with something unspoken, something threatening. I knew that whatever was on this device wasn't meant for me to question, but I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut. I forced a nod and mumbled, "Okay." Lisa's smile didn't waver. She stepped back and gestured toward the hallway. "Go on then," she said, like she already knew what I'd do. I walked slowly to my room, my legs stiff, my heartbeat so loud it drowned out every other sound. As soon as I shut the door behind me, I locked it and pressed my back against the wall, gripping the USB so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had two choices: do what Lisa wanted and plug it in, or find another way out of this. My laptop sat on my desk, the screen dark. I hesitated, then took a deep breath and slid the USB into the port. My fingers hovered over the trackpad as a single folder popped up. Play me. I clicked it, a video file. My stomach churned as I double-clicked. The screen flickered, and suddenly, grainy footage filled the display. It was our living room. Maximum. Mr. Lisa. But this wasn't from today. This was from weeks ago. I watched, my breath hitching as Lisa appeared on screen, smiling sweetly, speaking to the camera. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold, me handing her a different USB drive. I shook my head. That never happened. The video kept playing. Lisa turned to the camera and spoke in a calm, confident voice. "You see? He's been helping me all along." My vision blurred. This was a setup. She had staged everything, twisted reality to make it look like I was involved in whatever she was doing. Suddenly, a soft knock sounded at my door. Lisa's voice floated through. "I hope you're watching," she said, "because now you don't have a choice." My breath came in shallow gasps as I turned back to the screen. The video kept playing, and then, just before it ended, Lisa looked directly at the camera and whispered, "He'll do whatever I ask. Watch." And then the screen went black. My whole body felt numb. The video had ended, but the weight of what I had just seen pressed down on me like a heavy fog. My mind raced, trying to process it all. Lisa had planned this from the start. She had set me up, twisted the truth, and now, no matter what I did, I looked guilty. The knock on my door came again, this time softer. "Come on," Lisa said, her voice almost amused. "Let's not make this difficult." I swallowed hard. My hands shook as I yanked the USB from my laptop and shoved it into my pocket. I didn't know what she wanted from me, but I knew one thing: I couldn't let her control me any longer. I moved to the window and glanced down. The drop wasn't too bad. My dad's car was in the driveway, and if I could just make it outside, maybe I could call him. Maybe I could finally tell him the truth. The doorknob rattled. "I really hoped you'd be smarter about this," Lisa sighed. "But I guess I'll have to take care of things myself." That was it. I wasn't waiting anymore. I threw the window open and climbed out, landing hard on the grass below. My knees stung, but I didn't stop. I sprinted toward the front of the house, my heart pounding. As soon as I reached the car, I yanked the door handle, locked. I cursed under my breath and turned back toward the house, just in time to see Lisa standing in the doorway, watching me with a smirk. She held up her phone. "You really think running away will fix this?" she called out. "I already sent the video to your dad." My stomach dropped. A car turned onto the street, headlights cutting through the night. My dad. Relief surged through me, but it was mixed with fear. Lisa had the upper hand. She had proof, or at least her version of it. The car pulled into the driveway. My dad stepped out, looking between me and Lisa with confusion. "What's going on?" Lisa didn't hesitate. "I tried to stop him," she said, her voice laced with fake concern. "But he's been acting so strange lately. I was just trying to help." I opened my mouth to speak, but for the first time, I realized something. Lisa had been controlling the narrative from the beginning, but she had made one mistake. I still had the real USB drive. I met my dad's eyes. "You need to see this," I said, my voice steady now. "Then you'll understand everything." Lisa's smile faltered. For the first time, she looked uncertain, and in that moment I knew her game was finally over. Her